What's going on, guys? I'm Dylan with Constrictor Culture, back with another video for you today. Sorry for the delay in the videos the last couple of weeks. I've been just very busy with other things in life that I've had to take care of, so they've obviously just lacked a little bit. But we're back at it. We're going to continue to make some more as we just continue to go forward when I can. For today's video, we're going to talk about whether you should feed frozen thawed or live and what's the pros and cons of feeding either or. Most of my snakes, personally, for me, are on frozen thawed. It just works easier for me right now. But I do have a very few snakes that they insist on eating frozen thawed and will only take live. So I do have to go and still get live, obviously, for those couple of snakes, which I do. But I do every once in a while try to see if they will take a frozen thawed, and sometimes they do, and sometimes they won't. It varies, and it's just different every so often with every snake. Just to show you guys off real quick. This is it's a Butter Inchy Blade Het Clown Girl that I got. Growing real well. Plan to put her into the clown projects, obviously. I really like how the butter is in clown. Butter looks really good to me in clown. It gives it more of that nice creamy, like milky tan look that I like. And then the browns look really good too. So I can't wait to see what she brings. And then she'll probably go by the time she's ready. I don't know if I want to put her into my my lace inchy clown that I got coming, or I want to put her into either the Leopard OD clown or the Asphalt clown. Those are all three really good options to put her into, which would make some really good looking babies any route I go. I'm leaning on that lace simply to brighten those colors up. It'll help enhance a little bit, so it'll look a lot better. And by the time he's ready, she'll be getting closer to ready, where these other ones are kind of near already ready and able to start going for me. But yeah, back to it. So some of the pros I'm going to say for feeding live over frozen thawed right now. One I'll say is when you are feeding live, you're getting a much more nutritional packed rat or rodent of whatever you're feeding. For the simple reason is when you feed live, the rodent hasn't been sitting in frozen thawed and losing its nutritional profile that it will have. Because as things sit in cold, they will slowly, it's very slow, but they will somewhat lose some of their nutritional profile, which you probably won't notice any difference, realistically speaking. But that is just one thing to say, and it's with any food. It's with foods you eat and foods that anything eats that are frozen. Another pro that I would say of feeding live over frozen is when you feed live, the rodent is moving actually around. It is stimulating actual real life movement versus frozen thawed where you're sitting with tongs in there and having to fidget it around to make it look like it's moving. But it's actually stimulating real life movement and giving off to the snake that it is needing to, or in order, I'm horribly wording this. We're not cutting this, but it is making it seem more that the snake has to actually hunt for the food in its enclosure when it's getting close, versus the snake the food sitting in front of it and wiggling a little bit. It kind of gives them more that drive to, okay, it's time to eat. The food's right here. I need to go after it kind of thing, versus it being in front of them and it's kind of like a blank slate. Another thing that I'll say for a pro in favor of live is simply the rodent's body temperature is at what it's supposed to be at. Like, I feel like at 105, 110, somewhere, I don't know the exact number, their body temperature sits warmer than what ours does, or the snake, obviously. So they give off that heat signature that the snakes pick up, obviously, in their heat pits in the front, and those are what they're looking at, and they can sense. So it's something that does help the snake in order to, like, visually and more just get into that go hunt mode. When you're feeding frozen thawed, your temperature may not get to exactly what it needs to be at, and it doesn't stay at that for the whole time. It'll be warm for a minute, and if the snake doesn't take the food obviously right away, the temperature is going to obviously deplete a little. Another thing is for a pro for live is snakes majority of the time, they will always take live. There will never be a problem usually with them taking live unless they just don't want to eat, which sometimes happens. They go off food. They are notoriously bad eaters sometimes, and they will just not want to eat. But when live is present, they are a lot more incentivized to take that food versus when it's frozen thawed. They'll be a little more hesitant on doing it. And that's another good thing that comes along with feeding live. One more thing I will say is feeding live is a lot quicker. You're able to do it and get it done faster in the sense of you don't got to sit there, warm up the food, and then you don't got to sit there and hold it with tongs and feed every snake. You can just throw it in the tub and it does it very fast and gets it done very easily. You don't got to worry about anything like that. But there is a few cons that come along. Most are very rare, but one I will say is rodents, when they do get, especially to the bigger sizes, like small and up, usually, they do have a lot more fight in them. And sometimes if the snake doesn't get a proper bite it doesn't strike properly, or it misses or something, or it just doesn't take, the rat can chew on the snake or bite the snake or scratch the snake, and those scratches and stuff can lead to infections and other injuries that come along potentially with it. It's very rare that this does happen, and I very much say when you are feeding live, if you know the snake has taken the food, make sure to go back through that tub and check on it and make sure that rat isn't like tearing into the snake of any sort or biting it any way that can injure it. Just make sure. And if it is, the best thing I can say is grab your tongs and try and hold where it could be doing that, and just try not to let it happen. You're just gonna hold where that rat or rodent could be hurting the snake. Another con that comes along with feeding live to a lot of people, or some people at least, is when you feed live, some people find it very unethical because you're potentially just throwing the rat in there to die, which I can understand. There kind of has to be a point that you put it in there, and you just gotta understand that this is how these things live, and it may not be the most ethical way of doing it because it's not fully wild, but in order for these to live, they have to eat that, and you gotta understand that. So that is a pro right there for feeding frozen thawed for some people, is they don't have to deal with so much of the killing part of the rodent. They just have a rodent that has already been put to sleep, and they just got to put it in there or hold it in there, and the snake will take it. There's no part of killing so much going on. Let me put you back. You're kind of moving a little too much. We'll grab someone else real quick. Who should we grab? Let's get you out. You haven't been out in a minute. Show her off real quick. This is a spot nose leopard pastel fire/vanilla girl that I have. Super pretty. Growing like a weed, honestly. She eats like a champ. When she was younger, she was a lot more like vanilla looking, which I really liked in there. She's definitely, the pastel's kind of taking a little more roll over in her, but it's not too bad. She's still holding her colors very well, and I don't have complaints. But yeah, so one of the big pros to feeding frozen thawed, personally, in my opinion, and simply is the reason I have gone with it for right now at least, is you're able to buy in bulk and get a lot more rats and have a lot more on hand. So let's say you feed all your snakes, but you got females that are going into ovulation and so forth that are trying to eat more and more and more, you can easily just go out and get another rat, unthaw it, and then warm it, and then feed it. It makes it a lot more easier to have a lot more on hand, where you don't have that option when you do live, because you're going each week and you're getting a set amount. I mean, you could buy more, but then if you don't get, or if you get too much, then you got one rat just sitting around, which isn't always a bad thing, but you got to also remember that you need a place that rat can be and not get out and all that. Where I can just go out to my freezer, grab a couple more, unthaw them, and they'll be ready in a couple hours for me, basically, to feed off. But one of the big cons with feeding frozen thawed is, say you unthaw X amount of rats, and then the snakes you plan to feed just don't eat. They just don't want to take, and you just now thawed out a certain amount of rats that aren't getting eaten. So you are saving money by buying frozen thawed in a way, because you're able to buy in bulk, so you do get better pricing usually. But you could lose money in that circumstance too, that if the snakes don't eat, then you're losing money by having to throw those rats out, because you can't refreeze them. I personally don't think you can refreeze them. I wouldn't do it, because you've already warmed it up. You don't heat your meat up and then refreeze your meat and then heat your meat back up, kind of thing, or unthaw it, I should say, and do that. It's all just choice. Some people think you can, some people think you can't. I personally don't, and I don't recommend it in my opinion, but you do you. I'm not to say how people do things. But those are all some very good pros and cons in both. Personally, you are not cooperating. Personally, I will eventually be going to live, for the simple reason is it'll just be quicker for me to do that, and I will have too many snakes at that point to be doing frozen thawed each week. Because right now I'm at, I want to say 40 something, almost 50 snakes, and it takes me roughly 40 minutes to go through each of them, or all of them about, and feed them, depending how long each one takes to take food and so on. It's just my opinion. I'm gonna, in the next year, most likely, I will be on the live, just simply for time reasons, and it makes it a lot easier on my life. So that's just my opinion. Everybody has their choice. You have some pros and cons that I just listed off of what's good and what's not good about each one. You pick what you want to do. I definitely recommend, if you can't get the snake to eat, get a live at least once. If you can't get them to eat on frozen thawed, get a live once, get them a meal at least, and then get a frozen thawed maybe right after, and you can try that. Make sure it's warm enough, obviously, like use a temp gun or something on it to check the temperature of it after you warm it, and make sure it's around the same temp as the rat you fed off, and feed the live, and then right after it eats the live, go in there with the frozen thawed and see if it'll take it. Because sometimes it incentivizes the snake, and it kind of learns, okay, if the food's on the tongs right there too, then if those tongs come in there, I get food. It's just a learning habit. Sometimes they learn and they pick up. But yeah, that's just going to do it for today's video on some pros and cons of frozen thawed or live. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what you guys liked about the video and what you think is better to feed in your opinion down in the comments below. Make sure to hit the post notification bell so you guys stay notified when I post something. Check us out on IG at constrictor_culture. And peace. Have a good one.